This morning, we're going to begin looking at the Incarnation. We're leading right up to Christmas right now, and this is Christmas week. And so as we record this program, I was thinking we ought to talk about the Incarnation of Jesus Christ. So I want to spend all week on that and look at certain aspects of the Incarnation, actually 5 important components of the Incarnation that we will glean this week. The very first one is the fact that the Incarnation, the coming of God to become man, Jesus Christ taking on flesh, that was prophesied in the Old Testament. This is no afterthought on the part of God. God didn't come up with the plan because he had to, or things didn't go well with his original plans, so he came up with the plan B. We've known throughout all the revelation of Scripture that the Son of God was coming, and more revelation was given as time went on. And of course, the fulfillment of that revelation is found in the New Testament. But the book of Isaiah chapter 9 really gives us great details about the prophecy of the coming of Jesus Christ, the Incarnation. So I want to look at that with you. Isaiah chapter 9 verse 2 says this: "The people who walk in darkness will see a great light. Those who live in a dark land, that the light will shine on them." So Isaiah starts this particular section of Scripture by pointing out that people in darkness need light. And that's what everyone needs. They need light if they're in darkness. And so a great light is coming right in the heart of darkness, and that light will shine on them. Now he gives details beginning in verse 6, and this is a fairly familiar passage to us, especially around the Christmas season. It says in verse 6, "For a child will be born to us, and a son will be given to us, and the government will rest on his shoulders." We find as we look at this that the Lord is going to come, as being prophesied by Isaiah, to set up a kingdom. And so the big picture is even beyond the cross, beyond redemption, beyond our salvation. All that is part and parcel of the whole thing, and it should not be minimized in any sense. But he's coming to ultimately set up a kingdom in which those who have been redeemed because of what Jesus Christ has done will rule and reign with him and be his servants forever and ever. And so he talks about that kingdom here, and he tells us several things about the kingdom that will be established by this coming of Jesus Christ. He says, first of all, that it will be a kingdom of peace. He says at the end of verse 6, "And his name will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Eternal Father, Prince of Peace." Now, we would look, first of all, at the words mighty God. There's several things here I could talk about, but he's mighty God. And so what we find out here is that the coming of Jesus Christ, this Messiah that the Jews anticipated and the prophecies about here, he is God. There's no question about that. So the Old Testament understood that and prophesied that. But he's also the Prince of Peace. And so this kingdom that he's establishing as mighty God will be also established by he who is the Prince of Peace. Now, what do we know about that kingdom? In verse 7, "There'll be no end to the increase of his government or of peace." So once again, we have a kingdom that he is establishing and that he will reign over, but it is a unique kingdom. It is a government of peace. No government in the history of humanity could be said that it's a government of peace. We're always at war. We're always at conflict. There's always those issues. There are personal issues also. There's peace that needed between us and God, and peace that is needed in our own hearts, and peace that are needed between us and other people. But here he's speaking especially of government, and there's a need for a government of peace, and only the Prince of Peace could establish that. And we find also that he is one who reigns during this time. It says, on the throne of David and over his kingdom. And so Christ is going to reign from the throne of David. So we find this is a very Jewish emphasis here. The promise was given to David long ago that there would always be a king on his throne. And the ultimate fulfillment of that is the kingdom which Christ himself sets on the throne of David. And so the ruling of the kingdom of Christ in this time will be centralized in Israel, centralized in Jerusalem, and Christ will reign from David's throne. Thirdly, it is to establish and to uphold it with justice and righteousness. This will be a kingdom like no other. Today we know that many of our our systems are corrupt. We don't know if justice is fair, if it's just, if it's righteous. But this kingdom will be a kingdom in which Christ reigns with justice and righteousness. And finally, it'll be forever. The zeal of the Lord of hosts will accomplish this. It says from then on and forever. So it's an everlasting kingdom, a kingdom that will be established by Christ and will be with us forever. So no wonder the Jews anticipated and looked forward to the coming of their Messiah. It had been prophesied in the Old Testament that the one would come who would bring them light and would bring them peace and would bring them justice and righteousness and would reign on the throne of David, and this kingdom would be forevermore. So as we think of the Christmas season, and as we think of the Incarnation, remember it was prophesied in the Old Testament, and here is what that kingdom would look like when the Christ would come, what he would come to establish ultimately. So we'll follow up on that tomorrow, but we hope this gets us off to a good start as we think of the Incarnation.